Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we have today Abhiram Prabhu, who many years ago was, especially in the last year of Srila Prabhupada's physical presence with us, spent a lot of time with him, especially as a nurse as well, and heard different instructions in the context of Varnashram. Was also former temple president for Calcutta. Something a little controversial that sometimes devotees wonder about, this 50%, for example, and the importance of Varnashram. Can you possibly clarify or share what you know or what you've heard, being so close to Srila Prabhupada?
Well, so far as I know, there were at least two statements about 50%. One was made in my presence. I was actually massaging Srila Prabhupada's hand when he said it. And the other, I was told by Bhaktivedanta Swami, was made to him privately. The one that I can attest to, whilst, of course, having full faith in Bhaktivedanta Swami's words. But I was in the living room with Srila Prabhupada in 1977, and I was massaging his hand, and at that time Prabhupada was talking about his impending demise. And in that context, he made a statement. Na sojati, na kanchati. I have no any hankering, nor any lamentation. Then he paused, reflecting. He said, no, I have one lamentation. Brahmananda, Tamal, Upendra were all there, and myself. Unfortunately, I'm the only one remaining. So Brahmananda Prabhu said, Srila Prabhupada, you mean because you haven't finished Srimad Bhagavatam? Srila Prabhupada said, no, because I have not established Varnashram. Now this whole time was marked by Prabhupada expressing concern about fall downs. I remember another conversation where a devotee began a sentence by saying, Srila Prabhupada, since we are Vaishnavas, and Prabhupada cut him off and said, we are not Vaishnavas. Vaishnava is not so easy thing. We are trying to be Vaishnavas. So there was a context that this discussion of Varnashram was taking place, and it was apparently an awareness that the devotees were falling down. I remember in that time also, a report came to Prabhupada about a senior devotee who had some fall down. And Prabhupada was shaking his head like this, just saying, but he promised. He promised. He was shocked. It was incomprehensible that a gentleman could make a promise and not keep it. It was not something Prabhupada's world, that he was accustomed to in his world, in his character, of course. So in that context, he was feeling great urgency, and he realized more poignantly, that was what was obvious to me, that Varnashram was essential. So much so that he started lamenting and becoming anxious, and he was now deciding, right within this 1 week of discussions that I'm talking about, that I must go to the West. And going to the West was not just about preaching. He said very clearly, I want to establish Varnashram. So in this context, I'm sorry, I think I didn't complete the discussion when Brahmananda asked, or perhaps I did, but I'll reiterate. Brahmananda Prabhu asked, because you have not finished Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said, no, because I have not established Varnashram. 50%. So this was the whole mood. Now we were heading towards America, very much conscious that Prabhupada wanted to establish Varnashram. The next day, I was up on Prabhupada's cottage roof with him. He was sitting on his charpoi, his little rope bed. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was coming up and down, negotiating the tickets and the travel times and the places. So he was going down to his office and communicating with travel agents, going up to talk to Prabhupada, like that. And I was attending Prabhupada, alone. So during one of the interludes when Tamal was gone, I said, Srila Prabhupada, what will you do? How will you do it? It's my characteristic to be a very practical person, to try to do things. And I'm always very clear that how you start something is most important. The trajectory by which you enter a thing is very important. So this was the key question for me. How will you do it? What will you do? Then Srila Prabhupada said, I will go to Gita Nagari. I will sit down and I will teach you how to live off the land. So I'm very clear that Srila Prabhupada saw this as the completion of his mission. It is not another mission. 50% is not another mission. He could have said, I have another plan, I have another project, I have another mission. No. He called it 50% of his mission. So that is my testimony, if you will. That is what I heard.
What would you say is the most, let's say, the major factor for this aspect of Prabhupada's mission, this 50% Varnashram? Why hasn't this happened?
Why hasn't it happened? Well, I'd say there are two prime reasons it didn't happen. Number one, when Srila Prabhupada left, and by the way, he was not always optimistic in those last months about what would happen to the movement. He had a lot of trepidation. And that trepidation, unfortunately, appeared to be well-founded, because after he left, the movement went off the rails. It really went off the rails. And the things that happened could not have happened in the mind of any Vaishnava. They could have never imagined such disasters could have happened as our generation, my generation, brought down upon this movement. It basically destroyed the faith that Prabhupada had established. It destroyed the real momentum, the deep momentum. If that hadn't happened, and I'm speaking there of the fall downs, our movement would be 20 or 30 times greater than it is today, at a minimum. We wouldn't be talking about kirtan festivals of 20,000 or 30. We'd be talking about millions. And that's where we should be, number one. Number two, the issue of Varnashram had not been well fleshed out in most devotees' minds. We're not that brilliant at this time, this era. And Prabhupada did not have a chance to elaborate that much on the subject. So, when you approach a room that's dark, when the lights are out, you hesitate to charge in. You might trip over something, right? So then there were various attempts also to move to farms and things, and they didn't quite work out. I think very much mixed with the guru issue. I know Gita Nagari was basically put off the rails by a guru who had different ideas, and One time it produced tremendous amounts of food, and that devotee was driven away because of issues that the guru thought were more important. So these are our historical baggage. It's not pretty, but it's true. And we have failed in so many ways. Had we completed the house that everybody could live in, the house Prabhupada intended and designed, and had built the foundation for, and supplied the money, and the materials, and the know-how of how to build it, had we just finished that house, we would be talking about millions and millions of directly following disciples today, not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And we would have farm communities all over the world that were producing food. And those farms would have millions of people connected to them, if not partially living on them. We would be the answer. We would be at the cutting edge of the thinking person's mindset. The Back to the Land movement would be ours. The health movement would be ours. We would be in the lead. And today we just follow, we drag behind. We're like an also-ran that nobody even notices. We're so far back. So, obviously I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in myself, and I'm disappointed in my generation. So yes, we're far behind, and we need to do a lot to catch up. And it was a vision, that was a big vision. Prabhupada's vision, as he said in the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is meant to cause a social revolution. Srila Prabhupada also said if they knew what I was going to do, they would kill me. Prabhupada was not a braggart. He was not a jokester. These are meaningful words. Why would they care that much? They don't care about us now. We don't make a dent. We're hardly noticed. Prabhupada said those words because had we done what he intended, and if we eventually do what he intended, we will be a significant force in the world today. We will change things in serious ways, and will be a very big challenge to the demoniac forces.
Yeah, I think devotees will agree that this movement that Srila Prabhupada introduced and established in the West, which is Lord Chaitanya's movement, the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness, is meant to bring about changes in society in a major way. And although this whole area has not at all been addressed and taken up the way Srila Prabhupada expected and desired, where would you see the area or the aspect that should be given most importance to bring about?
Well, that was the same question I asked Srila Prabhupada, which I referred to a few minutes back. What will you do? How will you do it?
Right.
And he talked about living off the land. He talked about teaching you how to live off the land. So, first of all, he said, sit down. Well, really, first of all, he said, I'll go to Gitanagari, which was the best farm we owned in ISKCON. So the first thing he would do is go to a farm, sit down. Now, when Prabhupada said sit down, in my understanding of how he spoke, he didn't know. He didn't know how he was going to live in the cold climate of Gitanagari. But by sitting down meant he would figure it out.
Right.
He would figure it out with his superior wisdom, his connection to Supersoul, his vast array of loyal devotees who would be helping. He would interact with the circumstances. He would figure it out. Sit down. He will sit down with a determination of teaching us how to live off the land. Now we have to sit down, and we have to figure out, and we have to teach how to live off the land. And that's what will spawn a Varnasrama revolution.
So teaching entails, how would you see teaching? Teaching is something very important, of course.
Well, we have to teach at all levels. So far, we're teaching basically brahmacharis and sannyasi life. And we're teaching Brahminical ideas, Brahminical standards. But the Vaishya is the backbone of society. You can divide society into 4 groups. You could also divide it into 2 groups. And for answering your question, I'll choose the latter. The 2 groups are the Brahman Kshatriya, who are the leaders. Therefore, that's one group. They're leaders. Yes, they lead in different ways. And then the other group is the actual society that are being led.
The doers.
The doers. And 80% or 90% are in that category, and we don't have them. All we have are those who think they're Brahmins and some that are, and those that think they're Kshatriyas and some that to a certain degree are. We don't have the followers. We don't have the 90%. Of course, we have the Indian congregation, but we didn't make them. They were already there. They came out of India with that in their epigenetics.
Sure.
So what have we done? And how do we lead them? Come to the Sunday peace, give money, chant 16 rounds, read Prabhupada's books. How do we lead them? Okay. We haven't established a community. We're integrated into the host community, which is a Ugra Karma, demoniac society. And we're losing devotees, and we're losing the spiritual edge, even with those devotees that are trying to stay close to the temple.
But wasn't that Prabhupada's plan, for example? He said, we need to create a class of Brahmanas. It's a headless society. We have to put a head on the social body, Brahmanas. Was it not the plan that from these Brahmanas would come teaching?
Well, that's exactly what is intended and what is going to happen now. Yes, Prabhupada took great care to create Brahmanas, and at the expense of the other classes, because he knew that they had to be established. Mm-hmm. Now, amongst us, there are some few actual Brahmanas. There are some few, devotees who are actually able to teach the Vedas, understand what is to be done, what is not to be done. But the other classes were supposed to be filled in. Srila Prabhupada was in anxiety to get out of his deathbed 40 years ago. Right. He was an 81-year-old man on his deathbed 40 years ago, wanting to take risk of his life to come to the West to do this. And for 40 years, we've gone sideways on him, like a flat line in the hospital. There's nothing, no heartbeat. And our movement has become somewhat socially perverse for lack of it. It had to, because there was no expression, no opportunity for expression of the diverse natures that are in devotees and the need for community and common enterprise. This Prabhupada's idea was not just that we're supposed to be priests in this Ugra Karma society and just carry on working for, IT companies and various other companies who are all ultimately supporting cow slaughter. Every IT company, every automobile company, take any company, everyone is integrated in the murder of Mother Earth and the murder of Mother Cow. And if we don't pull out of that, then our spiritual edge will be dulled and the potential of our movement will be significantly hampered. And the mission of Srila Prabhupada will not be fully realized. He meant to create a revolution in society. That means a different way to live. We have to go Amish. Krishnas have to go Amish. We have to pull out and create our own communities that are growing their own foods, growing in excess of food. Especially in America, there's a natural opportunity to get in front of the good food movement, the health food movement, and be creating food that we're known for throughout the the rest of society.
Right.
This is the best thing we can be doing for promoting, for moving the whole devotee community back into farm-based society.